Good morning, I'm Reva with Quality Sewing, and we are going to explore some fun stuff today on our How Do I. Now, as always, if you have a question, type it in the chat and we'll answer questions as we go along. And then we always go back and kind of check and see if you're watching this after we film, we'll go back and take a look there too. And as another just little side note, if anyone says, hey, enter your name here to win a prize or send us your email address, that's not us. So stay away from any type of that on any YouTube or Facebook thing that you watch. If someone asks for your information, it's usually not the person doing the presentation. Anyhow, let's talk about what today is. It's Tuesday. It's the Tuesday before Easter. I know, right? Who knew that it was going to sneak up on us so fast? In fact, I got to tell you, I've been thinking about it for a long time because I was so excited about the topic today because we're going to do this. We're going to make little Easter bunny treat bags. So I was so excited about this. So I've been planning it for a couple of months. And then I all of a sudden realized that, oh my goodness, I've got the family coming over for Easter. And I haven't gone shopping for any type of Easter baskets. I've got grown kids. My nephew is grown. His family is grown. He has teenage kids and elementary kids. And then I've got the new grandbaby. But anyway, I haven't done any Easter shopping. So I thought, what a perfect thing to make little treat bags. Won't that be cute at the Easter table? Everybody has their own little bunny. I think that's going to be really cute. Now, you got to look at this bunny because he's darn cute. Look, he's got a cute little face. We'll talk about the face later. And look, you ready? So stinking cute. These are really, really easy to make. So if you're a new sewer or if you're an experienced sewer, either one, they're really fun. Now, as we go through today, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways, like a basic way to prep, then an advanced or more advanced way to prep, and some things like that. So even if you're new, there's going to be some sewing tips I'm going to tell you along the way too. Okay. Now, I want everyone to get your fingers ready and get ready to type. Okay. Let's do a test. If you're with us and you're ready to kind of do an interactive kind of little challenge, type an A in the chat right now. And let's see how many people can be quick on the draw. Are we getting any? Okay. There they come. All right. So I want you to get just nimble fingered because I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think really hard, and I want you to type really super duper fast because the first person we see that gets it will say yay. That's not all I've got. But anyway, but I do want to ask you, what's better than a bunny? That's right. It's two bunnies. Right? Okay, so now here's your question. Now, I want you to be on the honor system here. No internet searches. This comes from the depths of your brain. What is a group of bunnies called? So type it in. Let's see if someone can get it right. I'm not going to give you much time because, we'd all be twiddling our thumbs waiting for everything to come up through. But what is a group of bunnies called? And remember, don't look it up. Because I'll tell you the answer if no one gets
Irene says it's a bunch.
A bunch of bunnies is cute. Yeah, a bunch of bouncing bunnies. That's cute. Any other suggestions? Okay. Da, na, 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 na. Okay, I'm going to give it a couple of more seconds. No, we're not getting the answer. Okay, the answer to a group of bunnies, because what's better than one bunny? Two bunnies. What's better than two bunnies?
Irene said a herd.
A herd. Could you imagine trying to herd bunnies? No. Okay, here it is. It is a fluffle. A fluffle of bunnies. I had never heard that before, and so I had never said the word until yesterday, and now I think it's like my favorite word. It's a fluffle of bunnies. How perfect is that, right? So much better than a group of crows. That's not fun. Okay, so let's talk about creating our bunnies. They're very, very simple to make because they are made from simply a 6-inch by 18-inch piece of fabric. Okay, so here is a 6-inch piece of fabric cut cross grain, right? So it's the width of the bolt, so 41 inches. And I have two different fabrics, one for the lining and one for the outside of the bunny. Each strip can make 2 bunnies. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, notice I have them laid out both right side up, and that will just help make the assembly line process faster. You also will notice that one of my fabrics is shorter than the other fabric. And that's because there isn't really a consistent width of fabric across manufacturers and bolts of fabric. So you're going to find many times that it's not consistent. That's why I said it's 40, 41 inches. Sometimes it's 42 inches. You just never know. You also are not going to use the selvage. The selvage is, you can probably see in this one, that in here, see the little pinholes? The selvage is put onto the weaving machine with pins. Pins hold that in place on the left and right, and then it's woven this way, right? So we have the length of grain and then the selvage, but the selvage is more tightly woven, so it will shrink and react at different rates than the rest of the fabric. So you really don't want to sew with your selvage in your fabric or in your project. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold them right sides together, and remember they're both facing the same way, and I'm going to kind of line up my shortest selvages together because I'm going to end up cutting those off. Okay, now I don't need all of this fabric folded. Okay, so I'm going to cut it at the halfway and just cut it in half right here, just so I have my independent pieces. And then I'm going to fold, I'll set one aside. I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold this up and get that. And notice I'm not including my selvage. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Just put it in the chat there. Okay. So now I want this to be from the fold to here. I want it to be 9 inches because 9 plus 9 is 18 inches, and we need our 6 inches by 18-inch pieces. Okay, I have my 2 pieces of my bunny, a lining and an outside, and I'm going to line the fold up with the edge of my mat here where it is the 0 line. Okay, I don't want to measure up here because then I might get the measurement wrong. So I'm going to start at 0 on my ruler, and I'm going to line him up, and then I'm just going to simply come over to my 9-inch mark right here. See my 9-inch? And you can notice that this ruler, the mat goes from 1, 2, 3, 4 this way, and it also goes this way. So if you're left or right-handed, it doesn't matter. It's going to be able to read for you very well. And this is a smaller size mat. It's a 14-inch by 14-inch mat, and it's really a nice size for small projects or for taking on the go. Now, I'm going to take my rotary cutter, release it, and then just cut off my pieces, okay? Now, a lot of people do save their selvages to put into projects, and so that's really kind of a fun thing to do. But now I've got my bunnies here. There's one complete bunny right here, and I could do the same thing for this piece. Now, let's just step back for a minute. Had I not separated them, I could have left all 4 pieces together, folded them as a unit, and cut all the layers and made 2 bunnies with 1 cut. But if you're going to do that, I suggest you use a 60mm rotary cutter because it can go through thicker fabrics better. The standard is a 45, and we're going to use the 45 today for everything else we're doing. But that's one reason why you might use a 60 is when you're using thicker amounts of fabrics. Okay, now we need to get our bunny ready to go. So I'm just going to get a friction marker here, and I am going to, this is the wrong side, and I have it the wrong side up because it's easier to see. So see the brightness there? It's a lot paler here. We need to find our bunny piece. We got to make ears, right? So I'm going to measure down halfway down and halfway across. This is 9 inches this way, so half of that is 4.5. This is 6 inches that way, so half of that is 3 inches, right? So I'm using my 3-inch ruler, 3 inches wide. All I have to do is find my 4.5 line and set this right on the edge like that. I'm 3 inches over and 4.5, and I'm going to make a little dot right there. See my little dot? Okay, that's going to be the inside of the ear. Now, what we're going to want to do is we want to cut out the V that we're not using. But we don't want to go right from the corner to the dot, because then we don't have any seam allowance and our little bunny will lose some height on his ear. So what we're going to do is, I'll do this one first so you can see a little bit better, is I'm going to find my 1/4 inch line that's on my ruler right here, and I'm going to lay that right on the point. Right there. See how it's on the point of my fabric? So therefore, I'm a 1/4 inch in for my seam allowance there. So I want to make sure that stays there, and then I'm going to simply pivot my ruler till I get to that point, to the dot that we drew. And then we can draw, or maybe our pen is done for. Then we get our chalk out. And then there's our line. And then let's repeat on the other side. Again, I'm going to line up the point with my 1/4 inch mark, and then the other side of my ruler, I'm going to line up with the dot that we drew, and there is our piece there. Now you can simply take this and you can cut it out and cut out our V, and you want to cut right to the very tip and then come back the other way. So that's a very simple way to be able to get all your bunny ears the same. Now let's look at a different way that's a little bit more advanced. And let's see if I can get that dot to be made. We're going to do the same measurement again, down or up 4.5 and over 3. Nope, I cannot get that to work. So let me mark it with, I'm going to mark it with a X here so I know where my point is. Can you see the point? Let me redraw that. I'm sorry, I'm left-handed. You guys suffer from me. Okay, there, see my center point? Now, let's do this a more time-efficient way. And if you're more experienced with a rotary cutter, then this might be the way for you. Again, I'm going to line up my 1/4 inch right on that corner and then pivot my ruler so it's at that intersection that I drew. But this time, I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut almost up there. I don't want to go into that. I'm stopping what looks here about 1/4 inch shy. Okay. Then I'm going to take this and we'll go the other way, again lining up with that corner and the dot. And I'm going to then come in and cut this way, again stopping short. So I stopped just short of my point on both ways. And then I will take my scissors and I am going to come and just carefully get right to my little dot, and then do it from the other side too. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you cut the triangles out of more than just your one bunny set, because that would become kind of difficult. But now we've got our bunny cut out and ready to go. Now, before we sew him, I also want to show you another way that you can cut them out. Maybe instead of having a strip of fabric, maybe you're going to be working with a fat quarter. Did you know that a fat quarter is 18 inches across by 22 or thereabouts, that way, right? So since we need it to be 18 inches, we can have our little guy go this way, right? The 18, now he's 9. This is 9 inches. And this is the 22. And now we can come and trim. And I'm going to trim off my, what is that called again? My selvage. Yeah, got bunny on the brain. I didn't even know selvage. So I'm going to cut that. Then we're going to come to 6 and cut 6. So doing this way, you're going to be able to get 3 bunny bits out of this. So 3 bunnies out of one fat quarter, one fat quarter for the outside of your bunny and 1 fat quarter for the lining of your bunny. So I'm going to bring this over here. Put that on there. And then there's my 6. And then you have some extra that you can throw into a different project if you want to. Okay. Okay, so there's our extra. Oh, that was for my triangles. I'm like, where did that come from? Okay, so now we have 3 more bunnies. And as you see, you can take, we'll take these 2. These are the 2 that were made out of that fabric, but the lining is the outside on one, and the lining from this one is outside on this bunny. So you can flip them around and make them however you want them to be. Okay, so let's stitch our bunnies together. Let me grab my stuff up here. Okay, so we're going to sew using a 1/4 inch. And if you have a 1/4 inch foot, this is a great time to use it. The machine I'm using actually has a built-in 1/4 inch stitch, so I'm not going to use that today on this machine. And I'm going to put my little pressing pad up because we'll need him in a minute. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and I am going to thread my machine and get myself ready to go. Now, over on the machine, I have the regular straight stitch. This is what comes up when I turn my machine on. If we go down here, if you're on a baby lock or a brother machine, you probably have this stitch right here, which is it says P, and that stands for piecing. And what that does is it's going to move. I picked the wrong one. So here, it's the needle. Watch the needle. I'm going to go back to the one that I was on. See how the needle is right there? And when I touch the piecing one, it moves it over. So now the side of my foot is a 1/4 inch away from the needle. So I don't have to put my 1/4 inch foot on the machine, which is pretty cool. All right. Now we're gonna do some pinning because we're gonna do some stitching and some pinning. So what we want to do is take our bunny bits apart. Now the reason why I had you have the right sides facing the same direction is because then you can simply pull a bunny out from another bunny and now they're already layered to go. All right, so we're going to just simply stitch our bunny together. Now when you're sewing, what you're going to want to do is locate a button that looks like this on your machine. That's your reverse, because you're going to want to sew forward. If I can get my, there we go. Forward and then back, because you want to back stitch because you're going to be handling these seams, and so you want to make sure that they are secure. Okay, and you don't have to go all the way to the very bottom on your bunny here because we're going to actually box the corners, which is awesome because you're going to learn to do that, and you use that in tote bags and all sorts of other projects and pillows. Okay, so now I'm going to do the other side, and I'm going to now back stitch to make sure I have a secure bunny ear. I think it took me from start to finish, and I mean ironing the fabric, the whole bit, to make all 12 bunnies. I think it took me like 2 hours to make all the bunnies. So they're pretty fast to make. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And if you're not 100% perfect with your seams, it doesn't matter because it's a bunny, right? It doesn't matter. It is okay. Now, we need to be able to turn this right side out. And so we need to leave a hole in our lining. So this is going to be my lining in this piece. Now, when you look at your V right here, just know that we're going to have a seam allowance, right? So it's a 1/4 inch. So you really want to make sure your opening is down in this square part here. And we're going to box our seams at about 1 inch. So you need to come up about there and to about there. So that's about 2.5 inches that you can leave open. I wouldn't want to go much smaller because it just becomes difficult to maneuver your hands in there to get it stuck down. Okay, so let's come down here, and I just want to at least get to where the V is. And then I'm going to come down a little bit further and put my foot down. And then I want to reinforce this, definitely want to reinforce that because we're going to be tugging on it to Let's turn them right side out. Okay, so now one trick that we want to do, or one thing you want to do, is when we're putting these together, we want to make sure that we have the seams going the same way. So when we go to box our bottoms, what we're going to do, and I'll show you the seam allowance thing in a minute, but the first thing I want to do is I want to know where this crease is. So I'm just going to pinch my fingers and just make that a nice crease. You can also use your iron, which is a fine thing. And that's one thing I like the little pad for, is because then I can have that right by my sewing machine. Okay, so when you make a box bottom, what you're going to do is open up the bunny or the bag or whatever it is, and you're going to match this crease with this seam line. So take a look here. I'm going to open up my bunny, get in here. I'm going to open him up. And you end up making it like a little triangle right here. See how it's making a triangle? And I want to feel and see my crease and then have it match up with the seam allowance there. Okay, so as you're sewing this, we want them all to go in the same direction as you sew them. And the easiest way to sew a flippy flappy of a seam allowance is to have the seam allowance pointing toward you, so when you sew over it, it sews smoothly and not go backwards and try to catch it. So let's do that now. What we're going to do is we're going to take our little ruler and we're going to put the tippy point of our triangle right at the inch mark, and then line up your seam line right there with a marking on your ruler, and let's just draw a line across. And that is at 1 inch. And so we're going to stitch on that line. Now I am going to reinforce this as well. In fact, I'm going to put my stitch back to center so it's easier for me to see. And I'm going to stitch. And I'm going to definitely want to back stitch here, because this is what is going to hold all of our treats and our candy. So we want it to be really secure. I have a little lump under there, so I'm just trying to make sure it gets flat. And we're just going to sew straight across and then cut our thread. And we have our little bottom boxed on one side. Now we want to repeat that over here. We already have the crease, so we're going to open it up. And now which way is the seam allowance going to go? Toward me. You want to do this the same on all of them, and I'll show you what magic happens when we do that. Okay, so he's ready. Now here's an advanced way. If you don't want to mark them all, locate your 1 inch mark on your needle plate. See this one right here, right before that little silver dot, that's my 1 inch mark. So what I'm going to do is put my tip of my bunny right there, backstick, and I'm going to make sure that that stays right on there. And now I have 1 inch stitched right here as well. Okay, now you can now trim off your seam allowances so you have your little triangles cut off. That's fine. Okay, however, the next one I'm going to show you, I'm not going to do that, but I do want to either finger press, or better yet, use your iron and get right to your bottom. And this is my side that's open. So you just want to go in there same way, but just be careful. You don't want to open them anymore. And this is why I said you need to come up at least 1.5 inches, 2 inches, is because you need to be clear of that. So now I'm looking at my seam here, and I'm feeling the pressed edge right there. So I know that they're lined up correctly. And then I'm going to put my little point right on that inch line. And then I'm going to back stitch and come forward and then back stitch. Okay, one more. We'll do the other side, same way. All right. So in no time at all, you're going to be able to make a whole bunch of bunnies. And bunnies do breed rather quickly, so you never know how many you're going to end up with. Great way to get rid of some of the extra fabrics that you have laying around your sewing room. Also, if you do a quilt project and you have scraps of fabric left, this is a great way to use just those weird little pieces that are just, because you only need 6 by 18. Okay, So we're not going to do anything about the hole right now, and I'm not going to trim these off, because if they're inside the bag and they're down here when you're all done, it gives a little bit more stability on the corner. So you really don't need to trim them, okay? But what I am going to do is take one bunny and put them right side out. There we've got our cute little squares there, little square corners, and I'm going to stick him inside. Now, before I do that, let's do one thing. I'll flip them back out so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we have the seam allowance going that way. So I just want to come in here and take that little ear and just a little bit get that to be flat. Same thing here. Now it's going the same direction. As I'm pressing this, the way I'm holding it, it's going away from me. And that's perfect. So let's get these ones pressed. And this will make your life much easier. If you are doing a whole fluffle of your own, consider doing everything assembly line. Do all the side seams and then do all the boxing all the bottoms and stuff. And that's what I did with my fluffle, is I did them all at one time. So I have everything ready to go. Okay, so those are pressed nice. So now I will turn him back right side out. And then we're going to take him and stick him right inside the other one. Okay. Now we're going to do some pinning. But here's the cool thing. Since we did all the seams the same direction, when they're right side together, one goes that way and one goes that way. So they can interlock, and it's called nesting. You see how the seam right there is lined up with that seam? And since there's a bulk on this side and a bulk on that side, they just kind of lock into each other. And I am just going to put a pin right through that seam line. Right there. We'll come to the other side. Same thing. That seam allowance is going left. This one's going right. So I'm going to find the center there where they intersect and lock them into each other. And you can feel them, that it feels smooth right there. And then we're going to pin that little ear together. I did something weird. Hold on, my ear was not behaving itself. There we go. And now the other point that's really important is we want our peaks to match. So I'm going to line up the V, take a pin, and pin that, and then pin the other side as well. Now it's going to take a little bit of a maneuvering to go do an inside and outside points like this. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a pin to hold the side seam. Okay. You want those to match up, and then put a pin in there. Now, if you watched our How Do I last week, we talked about pins. And you notice they're long, but they're not as long as like a big quilting pin. If you use, like, say, the big long quilting pins, you're going to find that they're a little bit too long, and they get in your way when you're working with this particular project because of the angle. So if you have pins of different lengths, you might find that it behooves you to use a different one for different projects. So don't settle if you have more than one. Okay, so now we're going to sew down, up, and then we're going to come back down. We're going to start in the middle of an ear, because it's never fun to start right on a valley or a mountain, either one. So we're going to start on the straight, and then I'm going to put this right here because it has that magnetic catch in there, and then I'm going to be able to get that. I'm going to go back to my 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to put that down. Now, when you start and stop seams, it's very good to backstitch. However, I'm not going to backstitch here, because when I come back around, I'm going to go over the top of that stitching. So and that will lock it in. So there's really no need to do that. But I am going to work with my needle in the down position. So when it stops, it will stop with the needle down. Okay, so let's just start stitching here. And we're going to stitch around. And now as you go, you're going to kind of move the ear out of the way so you can have a nice flat straight line. And then, I don't know if Kara, if you can get up and over here. So here's where it starts to make that turn. Can you see the V? I'm going to want to stop a 1/4 inch down right in that V. So as I come down here, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take that pin out and I'm going to keep stitching until I get to a 1/4 inch. Now this is where a 1/4 inch foot would really be beneficial because a 1/4 inch foot has markings for a 1/4 inch behind the foot as well. So now I'm going to just get it flat. I know you can't see, but when I flip this open, you're going to see that now I have a nice flat place that I can start sewing this other side. Okay, and then when I get near that pin, I'm going to take that one out. Now the same thing applies here. When I get here, now I'm starting to take my pin out. Do you see how my right hand was taking that pin out as it went? I want to stop on that seam line. One more, there we go. And now we'll pivot. Now remember, it doesn't matter if you're exactly 100% on your 1/4 inch because this is a cute little fun craft project, but it's a good way to practice if you're getting, wanting to get familiar with doing that or working on a project that uses a specific seam allowance. Or maybe you're a quilter and you want to try making a garment, but it has some weird shapes to it in the pattern. This is a good way to get used to doing some different angles of sewing. Okay, so now I'm going to come and bring this back and get that ear flattened back out. Okay, now I'm going to get this pin out of there. Okay, we're almost done. Isn't that fun? Okay, so now as I'm coming up here, I'm watching where I'm going and now I'm pulling that pin out. So by the time I get there, my pin is out. And now we're going to turn and we're going to make the last one. So now when we come back here, we're going to run over those stitches that we originally had. So that will lock them in place. And if you're not comfortable doing that, then you can always backstitch when you start. But I'm backstitching now and then I'll use my thread cutter and we are good to go. Okay, so now we're going to make a mess. It's a good mess. We're going to turn this right side out, but all this extra space in my bunny's ear is not going to fit down in there when it's turned the other way. This will become very bulky and it just won't, the bunny ear won't turn. So we're going to trim off the excess fabric. And can you see, let me do this one first. Can you see the point for the bunny ear right there? We don't want to cut through that fabric at all. So I'm going to come up and make a cut up that way. And actually, I'll probably take a little bit more off. And then I'm going to come down this side. But again, I'm not cutting through my the peak stitches that we made. So let's come and cut that. And cut that. Okay, so this is all garbage. All right, then the next thing we need to do is when we turn this right side out, the seam's actually going to go opposite. When they're right sides together like this, the way you see the fabric, it's going to be opposite. So that would have been bulky, and this won't allow it to open. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to just use my smaller scissors because I want to get right to that. I want to stitch right, or cut right into that point. You can do both fabrics at the same time or one layer at a time. And I'm just going to come down and look, clip right to it. Don't cut through it, just clip to it. And this will allow us to turn him and have it look really nice. Okay, so now we're ready to turn. I got my point turner here because I'm going to turn him right side out. I need to find my hole. There's my hole. Now, what I found easiest to do is to reach in and go for the opposite ear. I'm going to reach way in here. And I put my finger and thumb together and I'm going to poke him out like that. Then take your point turner. And this is really nice because see how it has a nice ball on the end? You can poke that little ear out without breaking through the stitches. If you were to use a scissor or something sharp or a seam ripper, you're going to bust right through the end and then it will become, well, a bunny will need repair. And that happens. So if it happens to you, it's fine. You just put him right side out again, or wrong sides out and right sides together, and then just restitch your little hole. Okay, now that I've got that one, I'm going to come in here and reach and do this one. The reason I found this easier is because I found myself getting lost. If I turned the body first, then I would lose my ears. And it was, kind of like when you put your coat on and you can't find your sleeve and you sit there and fiddle trying to find your sleeve. That's how I felt like I was doing. So I got my bunny's ears done. Now I'm just going to coax that fabric back through, and then we've got our bunny turned right side out. Awesome, right? Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to close up our hole. So what I'm going to do is get this right together. Find where your stitches ended right there and where they end right there, and give them a little tug. And I'm going to set them down and just give it a quick little iron just to get that flat. And just for security, I'm going to take my glue stick and just put some right in there. That way we don't need pins when we go to sew this back together. Okay, so now what we're going to do is it starts there and ends there. So I have that much of a hole. So let's come over to the machine here. And actually, I will mark it so you can see it a little bit better from where you are. So here is where I need to stop. And here is where I need to start. So we need to close up that section right there. Okay? All right. So to do that, it's easy because we've glued it shut. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take a look at where my needle is. I have the needle in that right position. So on this machine, if I line this edge of fabric right up on the inside of the silver toe, I should just hit it, just catch it with my needle. So I'm going to go forward and back. I want to lock this stitch in. And then I'm going to do the same thing there and then cut my my thread. Now, of course, you would be using matching thread, not contrasting thread. Obviously, we do that so you can see what we're doing. But we're going to get that all stitched right together. And that's going to be inside, so it's not going to matter. So in he goes. So now we have the makings of our bunny bag. Isn't that cute? So the last thing we need to do at this point is to give him a good press. So I'm going to pull his little ear out because you want to be kind of as close to that seam allowance as you can, so it's not, so his ears are nice and fluffy. And then all you have to do is take your iron and press that ear down. And then we'll do the same thing with this side. Pull out those ears. Pull out this ear. And give it a little press. Okay, now I like my little boxed bottoms to have a nice, nice feel to them. And I can feel actually that triangle is up on that side. So I'm actually going to come in here in the lining and let me just maneuver him over a little bit so I can get him flipped the right way. So I want that going to the bottom to give more stability. Okay, there we go. That's better. Okay, so now what we can do is if you take these points, get them inside. Okay, take your little points. If you match them together, we can give that a little press, but we don't want to press this part because then we'll press the bunny's face. So I just want to press that a little bit right there. And that will help just make that a crisper little corner. Okay, so now to make him really super duper cute, you can sew a little button right here just for a little nose. And if you want to put some black buttons for eyes, you can do that. But the button right there is super cute just for the nose. And to put his little tail on, if you use the basting pins that have that curved shape to them, you can take your little bunny and you can safety pin his little tail on really easy. And the curved safety pins make it really easy to go in the fabric and back out on the other side. And then you've got your cute little tail. Isn't that darling? And then you can just sew your little button on. Or when I was hunting for some stuff at the dollar store, I found these cute little gems in the craft department. I thought, well, doesn't that look like a little bunny nose? And then I got some googly eyes. And look, how funny would it be if you put the googly eyes, a big one and a little one? I mean, seriously, that's hilarious. And then I just glued them on. And they're just so stinking cute. So get your face on, and then you're going to take your treats. And they're just, I mean, the bunny's a treat in itself, but this is so cute. So we're going to put some candy down in there. And then what you're going to want to make sure that you do is you don't want to fill him up much past here, because his ears need to form. And then, of course, if you have adults, then you want to put some good candy in there too, not just the icky candy. And then you just want to get some of the little, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? The stuff you buy for your kids is different than what you buy for yourself. Anyway, get some of the little tiny ponytail holders. And then when you put the ponytail holder on, what you kind of want to do is just kind of pinch in. Remember, you got a little face there. Pinch this in and then bring the ears together. And you'll see how cute that is in a second. Then we put our little ponytail holder on. And of course, if you want to use ribbon or something, you could, but this is just so easy. Then, since they've already started to be kind of forming, you can, because you pulled that center in, then you can just kind of shape your little ears, and you've got your little cute little candy bag with his cute little bunny tail, and he's ready to go. So I hope you have a fun making your own fluffle, or maybe just one or two bunnies, however many you want to make. But they're really fast and easy to make, and they will be well received by anyone that you're giving them to. So if you have any questions, or man, you're just excited to learn more, come join us next week on our next How Do I?